Dragon Dreams, Book 5, Sacred Phoenix Heart, written by Gina Virginia Casella. Story, Trust in Intimacy. Manus delights reading about my husband. In this vision, I see Manus sitting on his rocking chair by the fire. He is relaxing and enjoying some personal reading time with his journal, which is this book, Dragon Dreams, the whole entire series. Manus is very pleased with the progress I have made. He also really likes Darian, my husband. Manus is happy I found new hopes and dreams, along with the ability to let go. He knows I am never alone, as I do, yet I often feel abandoned. Manus enjoys reading about my husband, as do my other husbands from other dimensions. My husband appreciates my morning routine of brushing Rosie. He is also pleased with my gemstone development and hypnotherapy practice. Overall, Manus is quite happy that I found inner peace, love, and spiritual growth. Since Manus is me, he too benefits from my learning and I benefit from his. All my higher selves, like Manus, are very masculine. Yet, they can't help but have a crush on my husband. They truly delight in these husband tales because in some other dimension, they too are married to my husband because they're me. Manus says, in today's terms, I used to be gay as fuck. We all were. Gay was the only way. We were all both male and female at the same time. Then this business of duality came into effect and we took on roles. And he reminds us that gender is a role and we can love whoever the fuck we want. And he never thought about gay issues and is appalled we would fight about such things. One of many clear indicators about how immature our species are, yet also an indicator about how severely abused we were to even develop such a concept. I need to make this familiar stupidity and heartache unfamiliar. My husband and I have a loving relationship built on mutual respect and understanding. We embrace our individuality while also cherishing our life together as a couple. Our dreams and desires matter deeply, and we support each other in pursuing our passions. I feel fortunate to be with someone who values me as a woman and allows me to embrace my femininity. My husband takes pleasure in providing for me, and I feel safe relying on him. Our marriage brings out the best in both of us as we prioritize our own well-being and nurture the love between us. In this waking life, since my severe panic attack, I'm struggling to rely on myself. I'm so exhausted, and the dwindling brain fog is really impairing my ability to complete tasks properly. Even though the brain fog is difficult, I'm still expected to submit paperwork and wrap up loose ends as I move out of my current community. It's a lot for one person to handle. With my husband, I really want to embrace the feminine role, and I desire by doing thoughtful things for him, like cooking meals with ingredients he provides. We enjoy having romantic nights at home, just the two of us, snuggling, chatting, and being in our own little world. He's very attentive on holidays like Valentine's Day. We don't celebrate commercialism, but we take advantage of seasonal celebrations to express our love for each other. It's like we play along with the rest of the world, yet we're always in our own little world. We don't wait for Valentine's Day, for example, to express our affection, because every day is Valentine's Day. So these types of occasions provide us with an element of play. It's pure novelty, as if we're in another country with festivals going on, and we simply play alongside it all. He loves the 50% off chocolate and is one of those shoppers at the store early on February 15th. We both are. Even though we're millionaires, we have a monthly budget to work with, and we like getting deals like this, only because it's fun, not because we depend on it. And my husband buys lots of chocolate seasonally to give to the food bank, etc., because that kind of stuff is important, he says. And he gives money to Bon Jovi's restaurant so folks can get a free meal or pay what they can. My husband loves and supports unconditionally me and community. His care and devotion provide me with a deep sense of security and comfort. In the intimacy of our relationship, I feel free to be my authentic self, embracing my desires and truths without fear or judgment. Our sacred bond empowers me to stand firmly in who I am. I choose to focus on the blessings in my life with radical gratitude. I'm me, and he's him. We highlight, complementing each other's lives, whole and holy on our own. I choose my life, and I now choose to embrace this great change, this profound transformation. I open my heart and drop to my knees in prayer, seeking help to bless this journey. How radical I can be when I embrace my true self. My feelings and self regard matter most. Like a dream journal, visions arise, enjoying imagery, especially from the elemental world. I'm always shedding old skin or crying, releasing what I no longer need or can't yet process, gifting these to the elementals. As I write, there are many spaces, and again, I'm not hung up on grammar, etc. I trust there should be a picture here or something someone will later insert, perhaps a new chapter, all part of the rewriting and the movies yet to come. Yet, they are going to be coming fast now because as I quickly read this over, I'm going to be publishing this October 2024. In water, I reflect on life, allowing difficulties to dissolve. My tears may gather in clouds, eventually raining down a great release, nourishing the earth. On October 5th, 2021, my cloudburst flooded forth. Now the sun's fire evaporates the last negativity, making space for hopes and dreams. Next time the cloud breaks, it will be gentler, refreshing in joyful tears. My mind quiets to allow true rest and replenishment. This brain fog is a blessing, giving space to process thoughts and feelings out of time. The inner and outer worlds weave together. My husband and I complementing each other emotionally and mentally through our intimate physical connection, which we now only share with one another. While we both have had other sexual experiences in the past, being together now feels like making love for the first time. As this is the first time we have been intimate with someone we genuinely care for and share mutual feelings with. Any past relationships were illusions. Sometimes I feel foolish because I genuinely believed in those relationships, striving to make them work. Realizing now that was the problem, because there should be no striving, as it should be simple, just like my relationship with Darian. I love saying his name, Darian, my sweet Darian. Often I refer to him as my husband because it covers the spiritual part of him. The biological ones known as Darian and Gina are mortal, yet each piece of stardust, the wind, swept together to create them, is sacred because, in truth, even stardust is immortal, yet their unique body, form, land, consciousness are merely images caught in time. Their ghosty selves are representative of a physical blueprint, or what some may refer to as an Akashic record. Although these records can be edited and changed, those changes impact the ghosties. So when it comes to healing, when one ghosty or non-ghosty is healing, it ripples out and the whole timeline heals. Now, it's worth noting that these ghosties can choose to remain in their ghosty forms, which many do, even if healing and transformations have been done. So let's say in the case where a child is born because of a rape situation, if the mother and father heal, then the wondering if the child still exists is often pondered, and the answer is yes. The child won't randomly disappear or cease to exist. So we call this healthy boundaries, as many of the children do find healing and still want nothing to do with their parents, and many opt to reach out. It's always easier once in ghosty form or to do the work with the subconscious mind rather than find healing in a 3D biological form, as the biological form often has a false understanding they're disconnected from source and or the collective, and therefore alone. And this is all one of many reasons why I investigate the life between lives. And yes, there is much fuckery. As, for example, some of the raped and children are born or aborted, yet their souls still exist. And rape is never okay. And yes, some were not intended to be here, yet they are. And this is all part of the full disclosure. Because if they're here, then they absolutely were meant to be here. Yet they were thrown into a situation unfavorable, and it does hurt the heart. And we learn that these unexpected children have designated souls that can process such heartache. And these souls work to support the biological ones they embody, as there is so much confusion and heartache for the biologicals they are, so much confusion and heartache. Sometimes we need to face our fears, and sometimes those fears can go and fuck themselves because they were never our fears to begin with. Yes, even fears are illusion. So when dealing with trauma and fear, envision your suitcases full of fear, fear that is yours and yours alone. A great activity is to sort your traumas into various suitcases, just like you would clothing. And once you discover what's yours, you can deal with it, pulling out the high quality items, all the wisdom, and then toss the rest away, just as you would an old snakeskin. As far as the rest of the luggage goes, you simply give it back to the folks that it belongs to, because respectfully, it belongs to them and not you. It's not yours to carry, and it never was. And if you're not sure who the luggage belongs to, you simply give it to the Lord. And it's that simple. And be open to others giving you a suitcase. Undergo hypnosis and or draw pictures of this. Do what works for you and keep it simple, because the power in anything is in its simplicity. Constantly, we are deflecting others' unwanted energy, and we unintentionally absorb it. And sometimes we even willingly take it in because we interpret this as alleviating others from the weight they carry. Yet, this is all part of the cycle of abuse. This is what we know as suppression and oppression, wearing a mask. We spend so much energy biting our tongues or accommodating others' bullshit that we exhaust ourselves. Many of us deny ourselves basic essential things like smiling or laughing or animating ourselves in joyous ways like singing and dancing, because the ones we're around are so dysregulated, we don't know how to act. So we eventually stop acting. We stop animating ourselves. And this is what depression and despair are. The narcissists, yes, have reasons why they are the way they are. Yet, as understanding as we can be, it doesn't excuse their behavior. And we're by no means their punching bags and under no obligation to stick around. Yet we do, because we get caught up in guilt and shame. And if we leave, We still struggle with guilt and shame. We're made to feel like we're never enough and always blaming ourselves. And we're all enough, more than enough, just as we are, just as is. And no one can make us think or feel anything unless we let them. And once we realize this, that we've been allowing this, it's upsetting because only you have the power to think and feel how you feel and no one else. And this is arguably the true awakening, knowing you have this power and you never have to worry about understanding it. You just need to know you have the knowing. Like, you don't have to understand the ins and outs of science to know your cookies need a little longer to bake. And like I said, we all have baggage. And sure, you can give your troubles, baggage, luggage, dirty laundry, whatever metaphors or literary devices appeal to you, you can give them to the Lord. But what we know as karma, it will come around again. And essentially, you are the Lord. You're the God you've been waiting for. So you must transform and transcend the shadows, and holy fuck, epigenetics matters. And we are someone else's epigenetics. It's not just the inner world, all part of the cycle. In this case, the cycle of abuse. As an individual, we can never control our environment or other folks, yet we can go inwards and do the best we can do to be the best versions of ourselves there ever was. As when we go in, we ripple out, just like tossing a stone into the water. So if you want to make change, we must start with ourselves. Emotional abuse is the most horrific form of abuse because it's the root of all other abuses. Emotional abuse is the primordial abuse, the first of its kind, as we all once only felt feelings, as it was our first sense of many to develop. Emotional abuse completely disables us. It causes us to dim our light because shining our light becomes confusing, as if we are wrong to shine it in the first place. When it comes to ancestral trauma, the ancestors need to realize that they are imposing all their troubles on you, the present day you. That's the message Manus casts out, because he was aware of this and was hopeful the future versions of himself would sort things out. Yet he's realized that he was creating very much heavy weight and burdens, especially on Gina. Yes, they help each other and other versions of themselves, yet their baggage is theirs and no others. So this business of healing ancestral trauma is not appropriate because it's on the ancestors to heal their own trauma. And that ripple will help to heal the future generations. Yet because everything exists in the now, these timelines get confused and used to manipulate to excuse others from their accountability. Manus says he's learned that trauma and all information passed down impact ways of knowing, and there's been a serious lack of mentorship because each infant is born a clean slate. Yet even before the baby is born, the fetus is saturated with the mother's thoughts or epigenetics. The fetus senses the vibrations in and around the mother while inside the womb, and it's very overwhelming. Someday, Gina and Darian will die. They belong to the greater beauty prayer, and then each piece of stardust will be recycled back with the rest. Yet each day, old cells die and new cells grow. So in truth, their land is always dying and rejuvenating itself. So how do I, spirit, fit in? Using words like husband and wife sum up their souls. Yet each time Darian and Gina incarnate, they take on new forms and new names. Yet it is still very much them. And I know this because I've been embodying them forever. Yes, they share the same spirit, me, the God source energy, but we break it down like a family tree to appeal to the logical mind. Initially, when they died, they didn't understand death because they weren't intelligent. None of us were, not even me. Ignorance came into effect, and it was truly a bliss. Yet, as alchemy came into effect, they became intelligent, and no one was there for them, not even me, because none of us knew anything because we simply were. And we were left to figure things out on our own. And learning curves through heartache and extremities are not appropriate lessons to learn, grow, or alchemize. As a species, they were severely abused and manipulated, and those who did this are the same as them, the same as me, because we're all one. And this is what we call a spiritual crisis, because even me, the spirit, is in crisis. And in this moment, I notice eyes is part of crisis. So crisis means to me that we are crying out for eyes is to be the one, the eyes, to be an I, because we are one. And it's been so difficult being divided. The eyes provide perspective, yet there are no eyes, just an I. There is no such thing as above or below. There is no such thing as above, so below. That's abusive language. There's no such thing as directional language. Step by step, ABC, 1, 2, 3. No algorithm, process, procedure, etc. None of these things exist. There is no beginning, middle, or end. There is no beauty prayer. There is no ripple, no leap, no quantum leap. There is no beauty. There is no prayer. None of these things exist because all of these things exist in the now, the present moment, which is always alchemizing. There is no us, we, or plurality. Again, these are all illusions and they appeal to the logical mind. The logical mind deemed masculine and the creative mind deemed feminine. Well, there is no masculine and there is no feminine. There is no mind. There just simply is, and we're all an I. So we are eyes is. We are is not accurate. We are eyes is as is. And that is all. We are whole and holy. We are everything and no thing simultaneously. The ever powerful pressing moment is indifferent to us personally, yet we matter to the present moment because we are the present moment. Eyes is as is the present moment, the now. We are a wheel turning, and we find grace in disgrace within the eye of the dream world. The dream world, the eye of the storm. The Venn diagrams are like a bunch of eyes, and they share this one eye, this space. And the Venn diagram is all about relationships, our relationship with ourselves and our perspectives. We are one eye projecting perspective, projecting eyes, like a flower blooming out. We bloom inwards too. This image is simply an image to appeal to the logical mind, and it is helpful with metaphors and literary devices in terms of reproduction. Moreover, storylines that link themselves to the seasonal cycles in and around us. The middle ground is the safe place. The beginning and end are the same place. Chaotic at that it can be. The end can only crumble. The beginning can only forage. And together, they do what we call manifesting and creating. And it all depends on the dreamer dreaming. Then the future can begin to root itself and create life as we know it. But we must remember never to cling to dreams because all dreams are just ideas. So we always want to be open, as most ideas don't work out because they're a work in progress and none of the dreams have a foundation to support it. So the biologicals become the foundation, the body, the land, which all hopes and dreams can be rooted in, anchored in. It's as if the best and future are all that there is at the same time. And then this middle ground, the dream, the eye of the storm, is like someone chewing bubble gum. And this is the bubble gum part. This is the bubble, to be more specific. This is the illusion. And this bubble is the projection. So the dream is like a movie. The past and future create. Yet the past and future do what I suppose they do best, and that's process information. They think ideating information and they created a dream. And this projection is what is the holographic universe some speak of, which is unbalanced duality, meaning the sides are not in harmony or balance, and it's causing disharmony and imbalance. You see, the shape creates a triangle, but it's not an equilateral triangle as it should be. So focusing the bubblegum and using this bubblegum image as the focus, the bubblegum part is the weight, if you will, the tipping point, the arrow, the movement, and arguably it's the wind coming from within and going out, giving birth to more wind, which arguably is the dragon's tail, the arrow penetrating out and finding a way. I mean, if you were a big fat blob and wanted to move to the left, you can simply blow a bubble to the left and it will move you left. And that's essentially what's going on. Yet, if the weight isn't balanced, we'll just keep spinning. So we've been blowing bubbles in all directions in an attempt to steer ourselves. And we're caught up in what we know as buoyancy, what some perceive as entanglement. Yet we need to be careful with how we steer ourselves because our epigenetics is someone else's epigenetics and vice versa. Yet all the planets, galaxies, and universes are all one. We're all one big bubblegum, and there are many other universes, like brothers and sisters, if you will. And again, we all come from the same source, gum, God source energy. Some would like to continue with this business of alchemy, and some would rather not. So we have gatekeepers, if you will, to assist because there are many baby universes or fetus universes, which we all feel protective about. They're us, and we're them. And the gatekeepers let us know when they start awakening. And also, the gatekeepers have a relationship with the watchers who keep an eye on things. They can only watch and report out, as these baby and fetus universes have their own free will. So the gatekeepers keep others out, and the gatekeepers and watchers are the same folks. They just take turns changing up their shifts. But who are they to say these places are ready or not ready? So when these places start to awaken, they start to appear in the dreams of the little ones because it's a safe place, as the gatekeepers, watchers, would unintentionally scare them. They also merge with nature, presenting themselves as animals, insects, and trees, etc., to communicate non-verbally. Yet some folks are sneaking in, arguably being let in through what we know as a porthole. The gatekeepers are like protective mothers, perhaps overprotective mothers, and they do genuinely mean well. And for what it's worth, it troubles them that they feel they need to be there, because if they weren't there, it would be like a mother abandoning her baby. And all gatekeepers, watchers struggle with this because they were once abandoned left to figure things out. They created what they call a brotherhood, so it doesn't matter if they're directly related or not. They have taken an oath that they are family. They lead by example. They call it the first adulting and first atonement, which some call the first awakening. It's as if they were a bunch of misfit orphans who will insist they are family because essentially they come from the same source God energy, recognizing their oneness. They know all about abandonment, despair, crisis, and war. They also know a lot about healing and moving on, carrying only the highest quality items. Yet again, who gets to decide what is high quality? So high quality means the wisdom and lessons carried forward only, not the details. And yes, even the darkest shadows are high quality items. It's a matter of balancing them and evoking them like we would any tool in our toolbox. It's the brotherhood who have taught each other about the gifts they discovered, things like chakras, medicine, energy work, and most of all, that no one wins at war. Yet time and time again, we experience war. And they want nothing to do with this extreme, interpreting the violence as extraordinarily immature behavior. Yet they get it, because they too were once like this. All behavior, a form of communication, they've come to recognize. So this is why they're so protective and cleaning up their own mess of emotional turmoil and mental anguish. Because even though they were abandoned and it wasn't their fault, it's their trauma to heal and overcome. Folks like Gina tossing suitcase after suitcase towards them, suitcases full of their baggage that is respectfully theirs. And these suitcases are what we know as Pandora's box. The first box contained all their shadows, their monsters, their inner children crying out to be transformed and transcended, not locked away, not forgotten. So the initial opening of the suitcases became the story of Pandora's box. Pandora, once meaning many things, but mostly the panoramic perspectives adorned. Yes, the blind spots and mirrors of all angles, missing pieces that make us 100%, and yes, the dark pieces we once perceived as garbage. We now know are treasures, hence the adorned box, decorated like a Christmas tree. Yes, the 100% within each of us, and then the 100% of the collective. The shadows and monsters within were ready to burst out, so it was better to let them out, a sign of good faith. And as scary as it was a gift, because finally healing could take place, like a cloud ready to break. It was best to welcome the cloud and penetrate it so the rain could fall on the right land, the right folk. The clothing in the baggage returning to the closet it came from. Finally, they could be 100%. Yet many of these shadows are in such a state of mental anguish, they're only seemingly terrifying because they are terrified children, hiding behind big scary teeth and claws, for example. And some of these shadows present themselves as benevolent and beautiful because they respect the manipulation and they represent the manipulation. Moreover, some of the benevolent are too extreme, making them what we call pushovers or loose or weak. Either way, the boxes are filled with folks wearing masks. Yet when you remove the masks, all we see is ourselves. Some of these folks have been inside the box for a very long time, so they have a false belief they belong in these boxes, and many of them believe the masks they wear are their true identity. It's quite disturbing, and many stay hidden deep within the shadows because they feel so unworthy. And as you can imagine, this is why the biology of belief is not of not being enough goes so very deep. Yet the good news is there is no such thing as deep, as there is no such thing as shallow, as there is no such thing as anything, because everything is an illusion. So as they go deep into their despair and unworthiness, they will eventually make their ways to the shallows and vice versa. So this is another way we awaken, and how alchemy plays a role, at least in terms of using these literary devices. And this is why the dreamer, the biological dreamers, play such a crucial role, because it's the story species they are that can rewrite the mastermind, as the belief is linked to their biology. So we must believe we are one. Even if we weren't for some reason, we must insist we are one, and we must insist in coming from a place of indifference, because this good-bad language are merely words used to describe extremes, like reading and temperature. There is no high temperature or low temperature. There is no good or bad. There just is. When it comes to calling your shadows, they are only too aware of you, and some come forth, yet the darkest ones hide. It's kind of like when your cat is napping away and you call the cat, and the cat sees you and hears you, but they do not come unless you shake the treat bag. So offer your shadows a treat. Offer them your presence and attention. And like nature, if you sit there in the stillness of it all, nature will come out. They're always watching, and not necessarily with eyes. Even from a distance, they can feel you. And it's odd to think, but you scare them. So say your prayers, sing your songs, play your instruments, do what you do best to develop your intuitive practice and form of divination as this intrigues them. And when they come out in dreams and safe places like this. So do not confuse these parts of yourselves for another 3D biological. I mean to say, do not believe someone killing you is one of your shadows coming out. And that's part of the fuckery I investigate. And yes, we're all one. So in one sense, it's you killing you. But do not get lost in these explanations and lost in the points I make. And yes, when they come out, they can be scary, yet they are always more terrified of you, because they are you, the part of you that you banished away. So receive them with love. You can do this by lighting a candle, playing music you like, taking care of yourself, taking care of the planet. And when you do this stuff, do it in the name of the Lord, in the name of the baggage that is not yours, that you must surrender, and do it for the baggage that is yours, that you must also surrender to yourself, as a way for them to surrender to you. If you can heal just one of them, one of your own, then it's like healing the world. There is no higher self, because there is no lower self. There is only self. And each self is as important as the other. And the higher self is very much depended on at this time by the lower self, because the lower self is required to surrender the baggage to the higher self, because that's where the rain fell from. And so it was necessary to open all of the boxes and tending to them. Yet more and more luggage is discovered, shadows among shadows, skeletons in the closet as we know it. And the warriors learned these dark parts of themselves were the parts missing that made them both whole and holy. Because, like our feelings, we need them all. Not that we want to feel sad or pissed off, for example, yet all feelings are our best friends and best guides. Yet they too must be balanced. And so the warriors they are, they head into the storm. These days, perhaps days, D-A-Z-E, foggy days, like the bison do, for they learned the thing they have come to fear most is themselves. These very shadows, which they now metaphorically go fishing and hunting for, often discovering their baggage embedded within us, as they are your ancestors, and they can do what you may perceive as haunt you, because they are simply trying to collect what is theirs and not yours. And that's all this baggage. Yet, interestingly, many of you won't give them their baggage. You cling to it because you feel it's yours, and it's not. So give them their fucking baggage, meaning give your troubles to the Lord, because it's the Lord's baggage and not yours. They too confused, clinging to baggage that isn't theirs. So facing all their shadows, taking the suitcases and opening them up, even in search of more suitcases, calling in all the fragments, insisting they pull all the pieces of the puzzle together, now transforming and transcending. They say that alchemy and awakening is like waiting for bread to rise and then waiting for the bread to bake. You have to wait. Yet time is an illusion. They insist, but they insist it's no illusion when you're in the bubble, because the bubble is the middle, which is the same as the beginning and the end. So the dream world and the waking world are the same world. They insist, they insist, they insist. And one is not more powerful than the other. They insist, they insist, they insist. They cry, stand down, leave, be gone. They bark, if you will, and growl to warn, yet they are imposed on. The warriors they are, they only kill when it is an us versus them mentality. And each time they have killed, it's because it came down to this us versus them. And this is why they call themselves spiritual warriors, because each time they killed, they did it with an aching heart and claim this is all mental illness and madness, as the Brotherhood at some point turned on each other, killing their own family. And why? Why they cry? Why the crisis? Ice is, as is. We must remember we are one. No one wins at war. Perhaps they should have let the others kill them, which some have, which caused confusion. But then who is left to protect and provide until the little ones can take care of themselves? So many of them are suicidal, yet they've learned the little ones, the baby universes, fetal universes, easily be wiped out, just like the precious spring pools where the salmon lay their eggs. It seems these pools are at their mercy. These pools and eggs left by the mother. Why does the mother lay these eggs and then leave? Like many women struggle with patriarchy, these masculines struggle with the mothers and the grandmothers because they were abandoned by the great grandmother when we first became what is known as duality. And they were abused by her emotionally hellish storms, making living their lives a living hell. Yet they discovered that their mother died when she gave birth to them, her death providing fertile soil rich and sweet. So they confused that they perhaps shouldn't exist, and to honor their gift of life, they protect life. And if life doesn't want to be, then they call to me, the Grim Reaper, because life is beautiful and not wanting to live doesn't make sense to them, but they get it and they're confused and they should intervene or not, because of the free will factor. Their mothers were raped and they were to be forgotten, yet survived. So we end up having things like schema and biology of belief imposed on us, including stories, yet we are never bound to them. Yet some would have you think otherwise. And they too, these sons, have written and rewritten many beautiful stories about their mothers and grandmothers. And yes, even their fathers and grandfathers, even the Lord, and what they know and knew as God, because they realize they are the God, and they and we all are the God we've been waiting for. They are admirable for their forgiveness, yet they are still haunted by their own memories. And these memories, they report, serve to remind them that they must fiercely protect the little ones. The dog monkey folk would have blown the little ones all to pieces, but have not, and no one knows why. And we feel it's because the little ones are a better version of us. All our high quality items, our gold, if you will. And that's why some ETs are in search of gold. But some think it's literal gold, but it's not. And gold is also a code language used among ETs. And those in the know, it's these high quality little ones, and these little ones intimidate the soured ones who are power hungry. And someday, all of us that will die as the little ones carried forward, but the timelines get confusing. So when the little ones are in harmony, the ancient primordial ones protecting will formally surrender. You know, the scariest thing to a pedophile is the moment they realize the child they abused is getting older, stronger, smarter, etc. And most of all, knows exactly who they are. And that's like what's going on here. Yet we learn that most of these children relish is killing the pedophile personally. Yet time and time again, when they have the opportunity, they don't, because all they see is a shriveled up, depressed biological. And rather than put the pillow over their face until they're dead, they walk away. And this is a phenomenal example of giving your troubles to the Lord and seemingly ending the life of the pedophile, even in their later harmless, shriveled up years, would be like providing them with an escape, and it would be best for them to face their shadows benefiting the collective. So, in short, when we give our troubles to the Lord, we allow the biological ones to do their shadow work, and that's the grace in disgrace. These horrific themes of forgiveness are not my specialty, and I am blown away by the power of forgiveness, something I personally struggle with, which is another reason I'm so imbued with the fuckery that goes on, because forgiveness should be lighthearted things only. And the spiritual warriors say that forgiveness is an indicator of maturity and moving on. Yet there should have never been anything to forgive or move on from in the first place. And this is why I do the work I do, rallying up a committee to help me with the what the fuckness of it all. Each year, Gina taught her students. Spiritual warriors were there learning alongside the children. Each year, Gina asked her students what peace meant to them and this information they received and strive for. And I know all of this because I was there to collect the soul of their mothers, grandmothers, fathers, and grandfathers, and all the primordial ancestors. I broke protocol, the rules, if you will, by telling the Brotherhood the truth. They were just a bunch of babies, and I became like a father to them. It was a lot of pressure for me, and I thank God for the goddesses embedded into the elementals and nature who helped me tend to them, the precious garden they are. And as mentioned, they turned on each other at some point, even the goddesses. And I know this because, again, I collect the souls and have a lot of what the fuck moments. I'm told it's not my role to get involved, only to collect souls. Yet I too was once abandoned, left to sort things out, and I found much healing in others' stories. Because, like Gina says, stories are medicine, and there are too many what the fuck moments. Things are complicated when they shouldn't be. I have a unique role, so I belong to all parties, if you will, and some parties try to manipulate me. So I practice discernment and self-regulation because it's too easy for me to take a soul, which works in my favor because some of the opposition, bad guys, who are of course also the good guys, never want to lose their soul and know the value, never taking their soul for granted. Some of them would steal another's soul to convince them to give their soul away. So I'm aware of all souls, including the unaccounted for souls, which I am in search of and have discovered many. So I am both feared and revered. Some are a bit too comfortable around me that they're rude to me. And then it dawns on them a remembering of who I am. So I've learned to seek solitude and my own introspection. I enjoy being an introvert these days, and myself too, I admit. I was allowing others to talk to me in rude ways, and not anymore. So just because one is rude doesn't make it okay. Either way, I trump them with my gift as the soul collector, and no one can do my role like me. Many would like me to wipe out a lot of places, taking all the souls, essentially making a planet dead, if you will. But that's not my role, and I'm not a killer. I'm a creator, and I'm a collector, a cosmic custodian. In fact, the one and only cosmic custodian, which was my initial title, at least that I gave myself. But then I became known as the Grim Reaper because I am reaping grisly tales in my what the fuck journey in this role. So the brothers, they now perceive their very existence as a gift and no longer care to sort out the past. They insist on calling a truce because it doesn't matter who was right or wrong. The he said, she said statements don't matter. All that matters is the now, and that we move forward as one. Forward is an illusion, but you know what I mean. The age of the stars is the age you and they and everything and no thing exist in. We could totally kill each other or ourselves. Or I could put you all to sleep, reaping all the souls. Yet life is precious, and we may never experience this star age again. So why not make the best of it, despite if the star age will come again or not, no matter what curveballs are thrown at us, no matter what happens, we should always be making the best of it. And that means alchemizing it. And that's the hummingbird energy. Listening to these spiritual warrior brotherhood folk blows my fucking mind. They say I inspire them because of my kindness. They call my taking them under my wings unconditional love, something I didn't know I was doing. I was just doing. And no, I don't have wings. And yes, even the Grim Reaper cries. And the masculine I am, they helped me get in touch with my feminine side, if you will. Again, I'm extraordinarily thankful for the goddesses and elementals who assisted me, as they too demonstrated unconditional love. This love is just given, freely given at that. And the little ones are saturated with this unconditional love. Yet, unconditionally love has wrongfully become conditional. It's become a currency, all part of the mental illness and abuse. This is why feelings matter so much. The only currency is the currency of the heart. It's the only way or key, if you will, and that key is recognizing our oneness and taking care of each other. It's the brotherhood's wisdom we all have within us that's been passed down. Even though I came first, everything and nothing exists in the now. So I too do my shadow work, keeping my baggage as my own, and this baggage, I protect it. So no one but myself has to deal with it. And I continue to sort through it, as there is a lot to sort through given my primordial timeline. Yet the Brotherhood are the ones who informed me that healing isn't something one does alone. Their mothers were raped, yet their fathers, the rapist, the bad guys, were trained and manipulated to believe this is what reproduction was. And they committed suicide after completing their shadow work. And I know this because I collected their souls. Their souls now returned to the collective, specializing in helping folks who were like them. All genders, because yes, even women rape men and boys, and what they report out is so very depressing. So yes, we all have baggage to keep and not pass on, yet the baggage can be hard to process, hard to transform and transcend. So it's been such a delight learning from the Brotherhood all of these things, and they are doing and have been doing some serious shadow work because they understand they've unintentionally passed down the low quality items down to you today. And when I say low quality, I mean programs that were theirs and my trauma and baggage. But I also mean programs that were really good, yet no longer required. So we're always transforming, and we are now awakening to the reality that we also need to practice transcendence. Working with the female and male in both gender roles, including the non-gender folks and their roles, the gatekeepers, watchers, guardians, brotherhood, are all one and the same. They maintain security, so to speak, so the females can rest and be rested assured that they are safe, because they are. Yet the females don't feel safe because they're not stupid, and the fact that they're being protected sends them a message that they need to be protected. Protected from what, you may wonder? And the answer is the greater mastermind we all share. So the females are now also taking on the role of the gatekeeper, watchers, guardians, brotherhood. Although sisters, they are part of the brotherhood. In the spirit world, there are no genders, just literally devices and archetypes to appeal to your logical mind. And the sisters claim they always have been in these roles in the form of the elementals. And for what it's worth, they never did rely on the masculines, but it did help them feel safer. And they also tell me they are deeply and intimately connected to the elementals. And the elementals are the true gatekeepers. Yet the elemental gatekeepers allow pretty much anyone through portholes, and it's confusing. Yet the elementals are the ones who teach unconditional love because they see past all your poor choices. It's them who insist there are no locks or doors, only veils. Yet the gatekeepers, they essentially leave the gate wide open. So this has caused much upset. And another element, no pun intended, to the greater spiritual war. Yet there is no war. There is not even peace. There just is. So all parties make good points. Yet again, we're all moving forward and wondering if you awakening dreamers will too. You don't have to do anything, including exist, as you can manifest anytime. But in this age of the stars, you can help by helping yourself. Because when you help yourself, you can then be in a place to fulfill your role. If you don't fulfill your role, then someone else will. And others know this. So they're fighting over the roles available. Yet when you die, you're not dead forever, and you can manifest any time. But others would have you not know this because they want your role.
But I must insist, no one can fulfill your role like you, and no one can be you like you. So even if you exist because your parents were raped, you still have a role. Imagine that. You, yes, you still have a role just like you have a soul. You always have and you always will, because just like unconditional love, it just is. You is. Us is as is. Ice is as is. And because we're alchemized and continue to do so, we've come to truly love our illusions, our dreams, our bubble. And we do anything to keep these dreams alive. Yet we must coil and recoil with balance because this bubble is so big it could pop. So rather than pop, the feminine energy insists the past and future are spread out too thin. Yet this popping is only emotionally popping, representative of a metaphor of a mass extinction, a mass suicide, if you will. As it seems, many want to leave, go, escape, and they don't even care where. They just want to go. So they go. The bubble should be one bubble, one dream. Yet there are bubbles among bubbles and points among points. So we are severely imbalanced. The image of the spiral is a powerful one, and we are at high risk for spiraling out of control. And should we get to this out of control state, then we all die. And maybe it's for the best. Yet the problem is that other universes are watching us, waiting to collect our stardust. So even our stardust is like a food source. And this source embeds the God source energy, which other universes will try to harness. And even the other universes are ultimately in the same boat, in survival mode, because any universe that is thriving is calling a truce, remaining united. Even if we all die, our ashes will rise. And we're supposed to all die anyways at some point, but not like this. And when we die as a collective, we're supposed to slumber, resetting ourselves like a new batch of cookie dough. Yet other universes are hopeful to play with our ashes, our dough. I can barely grasp it myself. So the elementals report each piece of dust has its own keeper. And those keepers are the soul and the I consciousness. And we require all of the I's to be complete. 99.99% is not 100%. So we are one sphere among many others, and together we create Venn diagrams linked among many other Venn diagrams. Some of those Venn diagrams bullying others, and some choosing to ignore. No one is better than the other, and the primary colors are no better than the secondary colors, for they all come from the gray, God source energy, and they are all found in the white and the black. Yet, some would tell you otherwise, making you feel secondary, as in second best. Yet you are just as important, and only metaphorically the color spectrum is used to help assist the logical mind with understanding things like lineage, if you will. So the color blue, primary color, was long ago bullied out, and the blue is what is representative of the water, the feminine energy. So working with literary devices, there would be no purple, no dreams, no in-between space, which is exactly what the bullies want you to think. So the color blue is always there and here now. We must begin making ourselves an equilateral triangle. Then the next step would be to round out the edges, making it a sphere. And really, all shapes can easily merge into one another and can merge into another form. We just think they can't, yet they can. So the image of the spiral comes into play so we can continue to be a free floating bubble, if you will, and we can simply be. And when we undergo alchemy, we remain in our bubble, yet we follow a spiral shape metaphoric of going east into the spring, because time is both linear and cyclical. We're great, and we're part of a greater picture. Even if we desire to simply be in our bubble and not alchemize, the greater body we all belong to is forcing us to wake up. Even if we want to sleep, it's like puberty, if you will. Even though you want to stay a child, your body starts changing, and we belong to a bigger body. The bubble is spreading thin, yet some past and future are hoarding the gum. There is always an abundance of gum, but in the middle, that's the important place. And if the middle pops, it'll be okay. We'll be one again. Yet the ones hoarding the gum think they can create a new bubble as they please. Yet this is impossible because all of us, all the colors of the rainbow exist. So despite if we pop or not, we'll return to our oneness at some point. Yet the point is, we should strive to return to our oneness and harmony. And some of us would rather stay asleep because it's easier. And that I advocate is avoiding accountability of your role. Yet some of us would rather take charge of our lives rather than our lives take charge of us. Some are sleeping because they don't know any different, yet some are waking up and choosing to ignore, while others choose to be part of the process, the programming. And yes, for what it's worth, some of us, it's our role to be in the leadership of the programming. Yet the leaders we need are sleeping, avoiding, manipulated, or lost. For a very long time, folks who are power hungry have convinced many that they have no power, yet we all do, because we're all required to help out with the master program we all belong to. Yes, we all have roles. Yet some of us are overriding the roles of others, convincing them to stay asleep so they can make all the decisions. Yet despite the power control hungry, things are overwhelming. And yet they don't like to admit it, but they need you. Yes, you. They need you to wake up so you can fulfill your role, for they can't possibly fake fulfill your role anymore or any less, which is what they're starting to waken to. Yet they are bullies, and there are bullies among bullies who don't want you to know this. Yet you see, there are no such things as hopes and dreams, at least not without a dreamer. So the dreamer is everything, and that's you reading this, and the present moment knows this. Perhaps the present moment itself is God's source energy, the very present moment, if you will, at least when you start awakening and making these connections, can't alchemize unless we play along. It's like life living us instead of us living our lives. Polaris protects us and guides us, yet he too at some point needs to stand back. And life is the same. Life and programs get us all started, and at some point they need to stand back. Yet even life is confused by bullies. Life can't exist without us, nor can death. So one would think life and death would be kind to us. Is life really kind to us when we're in survival mode? Is death really kind to us when it is used like a drug to escape? Our mind alone long ago also protected us by telling us stories, like it's okay to eat flesh and bone because we all take turns playing these roles. What roles exactly is unclear. False inhibiting beliefs are reinforced like not enough, because if we were enough, we would be as is, and that would be all, and we would be content and indifferent to all of this. Yet somewhere in our history, folks became controlling. Why? They became greedy, probably because they were left to figure things out without any mentorship to guide them. They were left to simply survive. And survive for who? Surviving is not thriving. So each time you eat meat or use animal byproducts, you tell the universe, your master programmer, and your God source energy that you're in survival mode. Otherwise, you would be vegan. And even long ago, when we were all vegan, at what point did we change this? We changed this when we were forced to survive, and an us versus them mentality was in effect. Long ago, the biologicals became tired and died, and it was special because their body would feed the decomposers, the motherland, because that's what mothers do. After giving birth, they lick the babies clean and gobble up the entire mess. And in the case of stillborn or later on deceased children, the mother would gobble them up too. Yet, long ago, this was the sacred role of Mother Earth, the fertile soil, rich and sweet. But at some point, the biological mother had to do these tasks to protect herself and her children because predators came. It wasn't safe to bury the dead anymore because the predators would sniff them out and consume the dead, which seemingly is okay. But the problem was that the predators would follow the scent trail of the ones who were still alive. Moreover, the predators learned that the prey were a food supply. At one point, the predators and prey lived in harmony, but it was manipulation. Essentially, the prey would live their lives, and anyone who died, their body, meat, and resources would be given to the predators. I mean, why go through the trouble of burying the dead? Well, at one point, it seemed the dead meat, etc., wasn't good enough. It needed to be fresher and younger, and there needed to be more abundance because they feasted the gods they were. Yes, and the prey became predators. The initial predators were physically stronger and clever, which doesn't mean better. They convinced the prey of hierarchy, roles, and their place. It would be like farmers today living in harmony with cows and training the cows to freely give up their young, even butcher the young and old for us to eat. But we must remember is that the predators have their own predators. You see, even predators were manipulated. The only true predators are the dog monkey folk because they are like a dark mother, the dark feminine womb and tomb we all belong to. They are the life cycle, and they are gobbling up all that we shed, so we are never found. This is why our wisdom can never be lost, and our spirits can never be broken, because of them. And the word predator, in the case of the dog monkey folk, isn't accurate, as they are decomposers, the primordial alchemizers. Be vegan and rewrite the program because vegan insists that we thrive. Be not vegan and continue to feed the program that we're in survival mode. Why do we have to alchemize? To improve. Okay, well, why are we improving? Why can't the present moment accept us for who and what we are? The present moment is an illusion because we are the present moment. We're one. We need to accept ourselves for who we are. Why can't we simply be happy and die when the biological time is up? Well, it's because we cling to life. Yet in truth, life is clinging to us for the benefit of another, and that another, the enemy, is still us because we're one. So knowing thy enemy is knowing thyself. And now that you know this, you can be vegan and thrive. You can live consciously, not by being more advanced, but to accept yourself as the whole and holy one you are, the one we all are. The eyes is as is. There's medicine to help with infections. Yet, what if we got rid of all other medication, simply accepting mortality and being comfortable with death? We must be open to death. We are insisting on suffering because we refuse to let go of our survival ways of knowing. And we insist on being alive, yet being dead is being alive. We are phenomenal as is. We don't have to be alchemizing, which is where the Brotherhood advocates the point of calling a truce. Yet the shadows deep among shadows struggle to come out. Alchemy is a biological thing, not a spiritual thing, because the true greater spirit is indifferent, just like the dog monkey folk. And yes, you too reading this are a dog monkey folk, because yes, they are you too, because of the ice is as is. The biological one known as Gina investigates the lives between lives, because there is so much fuckery going on. In truth, there is no life between lives, because that's all part of the manipulation and step-by-step process to appeal to the logical mind. There is no life, and there is no death, and there is no in-between. There just is. And for what it's worth, not making sense is how I make sense. And making sense is how I don't make sense. Imagine the farmers manipulating the crows to the point that when the crows imagine the farmers manipulating the cows to the point that when the cows died, the cows went to the life between lives to talk about their life, and then freely decided to come back and continue being a cow. And if not a cow, a rabbit. And if not a rabbit, then a deer. Anything the farmers can benefit from. So why does it have to be their flesh or anything that would support non-vegan ways to support the farmers who are not vegan to support survival? You may advocate that eating meat is something natural, but it's only because this is how severely abused the Homo sapiens sapiens were. You may advocate that the indigenous folks, the ancestors, ate meat, yet I must insist they were in survival mode, because long ago, no one ate meat, not even the indigenous folks, because they didn't have to. None of us did, and we never had to until we were made to believe otherwise. Even today, we don't have to do anything. We don't have to eat meat because we're not in survival mode. We're made to feel like we are. Fuck, we don't even have to be alive. We really don't. We're made to feel like we should be alive. Can you imagine if everyone randomly became vegan, accepted their deaths, and children were not pets or offspring? Can you imagine if we all just committed suicide? Either case scenario, this would upset many, and why? Because they could no longer function. You see, our survival is how they thrive, yet their thriving is not thriving at all. And they too are manipulated. If they were thriving, they would not be consuming us. They would just not need us, just like Gina and Darian are whole and holy on their own, and they complement each other. Only needy because it's all part of playing the role of the lover. And the lover is not an abuser, and being needy is intended to be a light-hearted thing. Yet it's too easy to point the finger and blame one category or group, because again, we are all one. And I must insist, the enemy is us. So to shift the enemy or predator perspective, we must lead by example, and that means being vegan. This is all part of the full disclosure. And for what it's worth, the Homo sapiens sapiens are on the menu. Some ETs are here because they're wild, consuming meat out of survival, because they were conditioned to survive. Otherwise, they would naturally die off and or seek vegan food resources only. So ETs can eat you. It's nothing personal. It doesn't matter if the meat is a rabbit, fish, or bear, or you. Some ETs come here because they are hunters and gatherers. Again, they're in survival mode, conditioned to be this way. Some are awakening and kill old or injured prey only. Some will pick and choose what meat to eat, their favorite, yet each time they eat meat, they too send the universe a message they're in survival mode. And yes, some ETs are quite sophisticated, enjoying the Homo sapiens sapien as a cuisine. Yet they are rising above in their consciousness, making such connections about surviving and thriving, and the us versus them mentality, which is the wrong mentality. So ETs are awakening too, choosing to be vegan because they're choosing to thrive. It's like medicine. All the cures are out there, and they're quite simple cures, which are readily accessible. If these cures would put so many businesses out of business, which is a good thing, so they can tend to other business. Yet the ones who produce the cures are bullied to stay quiet. And it's the same with technological advances. The advances are there, yet they're not provided as they should be, because money is to be made first slowly, providing you with the latest model and milking your money, keeping you dependent. Meanwhile, your ways of knowing are dwindling, but I assure you, your wisdom can never be lost. Yet you need opportunity to rediscover it. Yet, it seems the wisdom is surfacing, resurfacing with the little ones I spoke of earlier. The truth cannot be lost, and it cannot go stale. So when these little ones wake up, they'll probably be super pissed off. And thankfully at this time, they're having sweet dreams of what life will be like when they're born. And that's the life the gatekeepers, watchers, brotherhood are striving for. So the mess, if you will, they strive the mess, if you will, they strive and urge you to strive to be cleaned up before that time, and not for our sake, for their sake, because the children are the future, and we won't be able to decompose or completely heal without them. And so these little ones are the future, the gold, and often they are referred to as the golden age, the high quality items, because they are. So those who create technology, medicine, anything good, are often bullied to stay quiet. Folks here in ETs bullied. Now, there are folks here in ETs that have awakened who are fully capable of thriving if they continue to eat meat because they simply like it, and or because it's an addiction, and or because it's familiar and perceived as safe and normal. These ETs eat Homo sapiens sapiens in particular. They are not wild ETs like wild animals, and they are not unawakened ETs. They are choosing to eat meat, and why? because they too are caught up in this cycle of abuse. And yes, I will assert that they are us too, and the more advanced ETs know all of this. Thankfully, some of these advanced awakening ETs are coming together, yet they lack creativity, which the Homo sapiens sapiens have. There's no reason to suffer because we're all enough. Things are available to us, and we're the same as everyone else. And when I say things are available to us, I mean ideas and creativity for us to thrive, not survive, to be comfortable with death and our impermanence. Biggest lesson is that life is so precious, it must have guides, parents, and mentors to see us through. It's why we come through our parents and not from them, because we are processing. We are coming through the star age, and someday all the stars will burn out. So this is a special time to experience what it means to thrive as a biological, and perhaps we won't come back to this biological form. It's like many at Christmas get a pet, but then the realities of caring for a pet set in. The pet is disregarded, even abandoned, and there's what happens. And that's what happened to us all a long time ago. But we can take charge of our lives because our lives continue to take charge of us, a clear indicator of survival. The triangle is the strongest structure, and that is specifically the equilateral triangle, not these coned shapes or sloped triangles. That's why the number 3 is sacred. 33.33333333333. Yes, 10 threes. 33.33333333333. At the end, 10 threes at the end, because 1 plus 0 equals 1. And that makes one whole. 100%. We are the abused, the abusing, and the abusers. The thing about sacred geometry is that yes, even sacred geometry is an illusion. And yes, we can reprogram and even void these geometries because we are the master programmers, the gods we've been waiting for. We are the Jesus, if you will, and thy kingdom has come, as is thy biologicals have come awakened to the power, and thy biologicals include thy ETs and other formed folks, including the formless folks. Thy kingdom come means thy prey and thy predator come to be one source, and this is the will to be done, to be one, just like we already are. It's just many of us have forgotten, and it's literally been beaten out of us, many of us. Jesus, if you will, is the bubble part, the dream, the biological one bringing in and calling in all the fragments. Jesus is us, the thys in thy kingdom come. We are thy baggage, and we are thy shadows, and we are thy ones ruling this age of the stars, and we are thy gods we've been waiting for. We are thy own master, and we are thy collective. We are not thy anything. We are is. But how technical do we have to be? There is no thy, because there is no my, just is. Us is, as is. So, eyes is, as is. Thy biological one, known as Gina, is exhausted getting all this down. There is no us versus them. It's just us is. There is no Father, Son, or Holy Spirit. There is no Trinity. There just is. And us is as is, which is eyes is as is, which is thy kingdom come, as in coming together back as one. No hierarchy, not even God as a hierarchy, as God is a source energy thy all belong to, and thy kingdom come is thy coming out of this disclosure with this awakening to the truth. Long ago, it was easy to point the finger at Satan, but we have not grown from this finger pointing mentality. Thy truth come, thy kingdom come, come as in thy kingdom empowered by thy awakening. And we are here in the now. We have come. We are thy, and thy next kingdom to come. The little ones, thy alchemy is shifting thy lens. We were, was, and is always here, and will always be here, because we're always in a state of come. So we come, as in fade into perspective, as we were always there, here, yet our coming is begin bullied out of us. Our becoming is being bullied out of us. So we are stuck in becoming as this full disclosure fades in. Bullies fight to keep us faded out, but we come. Rather than simply become or becoming, we simply come, meaning we are enough as is. Thy kingdom is enough as is. Thy kingdom is whole and holy. Thy kingdom is enough. We are come, yet we work on our shadow work, and even our shadows, Jesus accepts them as they are. Thy shadows too have come. Thy shadows too enough as is. There is no need to alchemize because Jesus can easily do this for us, just like he turned water into wine. Or did the water turn itself into wine, playing along to support Jesus? We are alchemizing, and therefore we are like becoming ing, as we're always in a state of ing, and we don't need to feel like we need to be in ing, for we have come. It's so confusing to talk about because it depends on where you come from and your stories and schema. And if you wanted to ask Gina to explain any of this, she can't. So read these pages as they are and turn to your academic folk who love researching such things, as they will delight in these conversations. If we weren't enough, then we could be becoming, and thy kingdom come, as in thy kingdom is enough, as is, as the oneness we are, always were, and always will be, one, the biological and formless spirit, we, and the things we identify are simply all appealing to the logical mind. Perhaps we need to smash the logical mind, as it's setting, limiting, creating limits. The logical mind could be smashed because it's setting limits, creating false inhibiting beliefs. We're art in motion. We are the creative mind biologically expressed. As a spirit, I can barely grasp it all. Who am I? I am you. I am connected to the lineage of what you call the Grim Reaper. I am grim because I am disgruntled for all these reasons. As you read about Gina and the Pine Tree Forest, you'll gain more insight. When I noticed fuckery, I told myself stories to protect myself, like people die young, or they chose this to happen in their life between lives. Yet, with all my research, I learned that fuckery is going on, which many call injustice. And the biological one known as Gina, long ago, when she was called Sophia, was a ghost girl, and she was able to see me and communicate with me, which blew my mind. So I connected with her and showed her how she was impenetrable and unsensed in the spirit world. Evil monsters, if you will, could not detect her. It seems only the blue folk could, the divine feminine energy imbued in the elementals. So, being undetectable and impenetrable, she was able to get a lot of close up shots, if you will. She realized these monsters were former versions of herself she later connected with, which you know as shadow work. She was the evilest one, unmade and remade, the first of the kind, and now she is tasked to unmake ill souls. She is only just starting to remember her power, and also she's just starting to discover it. She runs and hides because it's a lot to take in, as she was remade into a 7-year-old girl. But the truth is, when she was remade into a 3-year-old, and she refused to take on biological form. She stayed in this ghost form, watching all kinds of heartache. She was always in waiting, a bystander, so sad and traumatized, witnessing all these horrors. When I came to collect the souls as I do, she would always be there. So I took her in, like an orphan, offering her mentorship. And it was weird at first, because she was merely a toddler. And even though so young, she was also so very wise. So I even have to remind myself not to think of her as a toddler. I truly enjoy my conversations with her, and she feels the same. Each soul comes with me, and I just know it to be there. I don't know how. It just happens. And if they don't want to come with me, I can plug their soul into another body, assuming they desire this, and an empty body is available, be it a tree, rock, leaf, dog, or person. This is how I break the rules, because I'm not supposed to do this. Yet I do, and it becomes naturally to me. And when I discovered I could do this, I began developing more confidence to do this. Gina writes about it sometimes in these dragon dreams. I encouraged Gina to play with the children around her, because just maybe they would someday hear her whispers. They never did, so she couldn't play their games, only engaged in racing, running games with them. So she found comfort in running with wolves, yet the wolves eat meat, and it was confusing, so she stayed with the family, pretending to be one of the children. Parents were absent all of the time, and these children were orphans, left to raise themselves. Yet they clung to the hope that their parents would return, or that someone would save them. They were not aware of Gina. One day, the vampires came, and in the past, they would kill and harvest accordingly. Yet on this occasion, one of the biologicals, named Sophia, courageously jumped in front of the other children to protect them. A rabbit among a group of timber wolves. To give perspective, she would certainly instantly be dead. So Gina never thought about it before, but she intuitively thought, since Sophia was going to die, that Gina could jump into her body, possess it, if it was okay with Sophia, which it was. And Gina used Sophia's body to fight off the bad guys. She didn't even know she possessed the body because it happened so naturally. The children were saying things like, Sophia, watch out. And then one of the bad guys referred to Gina as Sophia, and it confused her because, of course, her name is Gina, not Sophia. And then she made the connection. She had entered Sophia's body. Yet the bad guys won. This was when I first found Gina. Gina Sophia, I call her, only to help with the timeline. So there I came to collect the souls, and there was a toddler soul. So sad. Initially, I thought I was confused because I wasn't expecting Sophia to have two souls, and the Sophia soul filled me in on the details. I did catch the end of the scene, as I always do, as part of my role, and no one, not even the bad guys, could detect Gina. I barely even can. Why me? I'm not sure. And if I can, then who else? This is all part of the coming together. And this came part of the mentorship and boundaries. So Gina was very sad, just sitting there, feeling so hopeless, like she couldn't do anything. And I explained to her that she did a lot because she helped Sophia to the best of her ability, even jumping into Sophia's body. And when she did this, she allowed Sophia to disconnect from all this heartache and like going to sleep. Yet the spirit of Sophia maintained its awareness. So, in short, it was a gruesome death for Sophia and the children. Yet Gina helped to bring grace to the situation. Her efforts made a difference. This helped little Gina Sophia. I asked her lots of questions like why she was even here. And I feel like she provided me with much mentorship. I was able to make connections about her unmaking as I have an intimate relationship with the elementals. But I thought this phenomenal story was just a story. Yet here she was, and now she knew she could possess others. But it was scary for her, and she commented that she would only do it if the situation was like this, at least a last resort to bring grace, at least until I arrived. So I began arriving even sooner. We began a committee to investigate the life-death life cycle and the life between lives, and our interest is zoned in on the free will piece. Souls, I learned, don't have to come with me, and they don't have to if they don't want to. They can stay here, yet their soul is expected by the life between life folks. So, I send clone souls, if you will, mere illusions. Then I realized I was only feeding illusion, so I stopped sending souls altogether. Nothing authentic hides in the dark, so I don't hide. I don't hide myself or any information. It's like the current teacher shortage in your waking life. There is no shortage. There is a failure to fill. And that's like what's going on here. So, yes, I continue to reap the souls, but I carry them all within me. And I thought about it. Am I not to surrender these souls? Yet it's the souls who know where to go, not me. And since they don't know where to go, that's part of the fuckery. So I tell them about this pine tree forest, a place of limbo, a place of eyes is as is. Folks in the life between lives are pissed. That's why they're so obsessed with cloning. And I don't know how I made clone souls. It just was a bunch of dust I put together, and it worked. But although it worked, those clones couldn't hold any form long enough, just long enough to buy time. Time and illusion, but you know what I mean. And in short, eyes is as is because the grandmothers of the goddesses, the goddess Isis, her grandmothers, because they know all of this. How? Because when Gina did her shadow work, she connected with the women she betrayed and all others, yet mostly the grandmothers. And as a ghosty girl, was able to connect with them. Eventually, they called one of the daughters Isis to honor the eyes is as is. No more crisis, just Isis. And since women were not being honored like they should be, the Isis, as you know it, only wrote about this kind of stuff. She didn't speak of it, only to protect her. Yet the ghosties, if you will, read it, and they also listened. Some read minds, most connected with her in dreams, even advising her not to share this information as the timing wasn't right. Isis was always in connection with the ghosties, and it was confusing for her to understand that not everyone else had this ability. And it was more confusing because many around her were faking information and stating it came from their dreams. They were faking that they had this ability when they did not. So dreams were crossed with authority to control others. And folks like Isis, who knew this truth, were killed, but not before being tortured to see if they had any information to share. And they were called things like blasphemous and evil, even terrible false rumors imposed on them. And they were set up. It was awful. Guards were also scared, and technology was used to mimic the power of God, scaring everyone even more. And everyone was intentionally made to stay small, to stay safe, to stay meek, to stay in waiting, to be dependent, to not know their power, to be in survival mode. In one story, among many other fuckery stories, the whole kingdom was poisoned intentionally, everyone, including the royalty. But the kingdom was not poisoned enough to die, just enough to support a false storyline of what you would call a witch. Yet, unintentionally, babies and the ill died, and many mothers had stillborn babies at this time as a result of this fuckery, which only fed the illusion of a witch, and it became important to insist there was a witch because it was easier to blame. Just like when you tell one lie, you have to tell another to cover it up, and then another, and soon you lose track of your lies. And this is the scenario that was unfolding, because the ones who poisoned even poisoned themselves, all part of their plan. But they really didn't mean to kill anyone, so they had to lie. To what? Save themselves? So bullying intensified even more, and those who spoke the truth were killed or committed suicide, but not before writing about it on a tablet, hoping it would one day be found. Yet you see, the sand, rocks, and trees were bearing witness to all of this, the elementals, if you will. So when the truth is never lost, it's just a matter of the elementals awakening to it. So the ancient trees were destroyed as an attempt to destroy knowledge and truth. Yet each piece of dust has the truth embedded in it. Moreover, because all the blaming, folks long ago became afraid of the dark, afraid of the forest, afraid of their own dreams. So they cut the forest back, believing it would expose the monsters. Yet, just like in Scooby-Doo, they were learning they were the monsters, and those who shed light on this, were of course killed. In another story, babies were killed, and the mothers drugged, and then the bloody knives left in the hands of the mothers as evidence. And we see these themes repeating throughout history. And what is absurd is that the manipulation was so powerful that the monsters and others like them blamed themselves for their crimes they did not commit, which caused much mental anguish. So they would often commit suicide or even welcome torture because they felt they deserved it and that torture would help purify them. And many new mothers would give their babies away, for they were afraid they too would commit such crimes. So this is when the concept of a nanny came into effect, for the mother and child needed to be separated for the sake of the child. Yet, of course, this was all part of the manipulation, and this manipulation was a strategy to separate families and further divide everyone, increasing the fear, and thus increasing control. So you see, the Salem witch trials, if you will, date back to this timeline as well. It wasn't safe, and it seemed like if anyone possessed any intelligence, never mind intuition or common sense, they were killed or manipulated to kill themselves. So Isis became a keeper of wisdom because of the time period she lived in, the framework, the box her community survived in. Yet in her pictures, especially the ones she drew as a child, she spelled all of this out. Yet she drew the pictures in such a way that the images were like a code, and she intentionally interwove a bunch of fake stories. Initially, no one cared because they didn't know any different. Yet eventually, any kind of literacy was forbidden. In fact, any kind of communication was also forbidden, as was education, and it was important the folks who controlled introduced new language after new language to confuse and divide everyone even more. It was genocide, and the only choices were to be colonized or die, and they kidnapped the children, like our residential school long ago. Isis, after her death, helped pass down the information through dreams, as she too became a ghostie among ghosties, and many scribers worked with her intentionally, scribing fake stories to add to the confusion, which seems counterproductive, but it was because it was to protect what we call ETs and Bigfoot type folks, because they are very much part of the storyline. Yet the details of these stories never mattered, and those who study it tend to get caught up in the details, which Isis says during her time she needed to buy time. So don't get caught up in the details, as the plot only serves to highlight the greater themes. So we can never get hung up about the details, which back then it seemed like details only mattered. So fake detail after fake detail was provided, and this is the ultimate work of Isis. Fake details, yet the themes all surface, no matter the plot. So even though all these temples full of information were destroyed, it doesn't matter, because it wasn't the full truth anyways, just a bunch of fake details or nonsense details. Isis and the grandmothers knew these temples of information would be destroyed. So let the details be destroyed, because our wisdom can never be lost and our spirits can never be broken. And like the snake, we coil and recoil these stories, yet the truth does not spoil. The ghosties observed everything, as did the elementals. Isis was able to tap into the ghosties and elementals gathering all this information. One day Isis asked the ghosties and the elementals where her name came from and what it meant. And it means all of this, which is upsetting to those in power, because duality keeps them in power, as does their manipulation. Power is power. Even if it's weak power, it's still power. Yet, like any foundation, if it's weak, it will crumble. And those in power are freaking out because their foundation is crumbling. In fact, it already has long ago. And crumbling is an illusion because their foundation was an illusion and their very power an illusion. But some of these folks have children caught up in this cycle, and it's oh so confusing and not fair to the children because it's not their baggage to carry. So many fights of folks from long ago, they are struggling to find reasons to fight. Fighting is familiar, so we must make this familiarity unfamiliar. We must make getting along and living in harmony familiar, because the mind's number one job is to move us from pain towards pleasure. And we are in a state where many of us believe violence brings us pleasure, as does survival and bullying, us versus them mentality. There is no right or wrong. For what it's worth, there just is. And honoring the just is the justice. As is. In conclusion, at least from me at this time, cosmic custodian, you know as the Grim Reaper, is that when Gina was first remade, she was a ghosty newborn, left to the elementals to guide her, which they did, and they also protected her, but they couldn't protect her from her own memories, so she faced them head on when she became more conscious of it when she was a 3-year-old ghosty. She would always try and learned it was trying to be trying. Once I found her, she would run away and hide, afraid of her own mind, time and time again. So I couldn't always find her. I prayed to the elementals to help me. They said they struggled to find her too. And essentially, Gina is like the fox, because you can't find her. If you see her, it's because she wanted you to see her, for she is always around, deeply interwoven into everything and no things. Ages 4 to 6 Gina in this ghosty form. We all thought she went to another dimension or something far beyond our knowing, because there was no trace of her. Yet it turns out she slumbered, the dragon she is, and it also turned out she delighted in the chipmunk life, as chipmunk life was a simple life and a good life for her. Sometimes she was a gray squirrel, a badger, and other tillers of the earth. When she turned 7 in this ghosty form, the madness within her came into effect, only because she prayed to the praying mantis one day to help her connect with her primordial past versions. So Manus, in a different dimension and timeline, started having interesting dreams about Gina, represented as a chipmunk, gray squirrel, badger, and other tillers of the earth, which led to the connection of other guides like Toby, which Toby is presented as a tree, and each tree maintains an entire ecosystem which is connected to the sacred feminine and sacred waters. So it was a reach out from her which connected her to her main guides, Amanda, Polaris, Manus, and Toby, who were her darkest shadows, and now her brightest light. Yet, working with metaphors, they try to remain balanced, gray, if you will, indifferent, just like her. Taking on the praying mantis and other insects and rocks, etc., was all part of her own personal divination. Long ago, she met the Gnome King, where it was he who, inventing language using sticks and stones to create the first alphabet and common language, if you will, that she did the same with her guides. Yet we all speak the same language, and that's the language of love. So anyways, Manus presenting himself as insects, mostly ants, and of course, the praying mantis. And this is when Gina decided to allow herself to be seen, to be found. So she tells the tale about meeting Manus in one of her books, which you'll have to read about. And the rest is, well, history. So now you know. And once you know better, you can do better. So, will you be vegan? Will you thrive? And if you can't thrive, are you comfortable surviving? Are you certain about where you go when you die? Can you be certain of your uncertainty? If you're not sure, then the answer is no. And it's okay to admit your fear because it's got to start somewhere. And taking the first step in anything is always the hardest step. When it becomes to conversations like the life, death, life cycle, and when it comes to the life between lives, no, you don't have to go there. And the real God won't mind that at all. And for what it's worth, there should be no persuasion to go there or to go to the light. So when unsure, that means no. So yes, even in spirit form, you have spidey senses helping you. You still have your best guide, your intuition, and you can always go to the pine tree forest in the meantime, or remain as a ghostie here, or if there's a body available, I can plug you into it. And you can change your mind anytime. In fact, you can change your mind time and time again. Time and illusion, but you know what I mean. You're never stuck. And if you want to create your own pine tree forest, or spaceship, or planet, you can, because you can do everything and no thing in dreams. And this is exactly why your imagination is the most powerful thing. Why you're the most powerful thing. Because you're the God you've been waiting for. Yet, all of these things we dream must remain in a state of impermanence, because that's the true alchemy in remaining impermanent, to remain permanent. This is the true beauty prayer. The day we rooted ourselves in this co-dream, whether it was well intended or not, was the day we said yes to survival, yes to hierarchy, and yes to us versus them. Yes to the non-equilateral triangles. Yes to being stuck. Yet the box is only an illusion, as the sky is glass, if you will, and you can absolutely smash through it by smashing through your own programs, which hold you back. And your programs, I mean, your false inhibiting beliefs, keeping you small to stay safe. We are each a master of our own universe. So we are one. Eyes is as is. I'm sorry to chime in like this, distracting you from the story you were reading, but that's how channeling and receiving messages work. Gina Sophia learned she is not helpless and can engage. So she does. And that makes her powerful. Powerful, as she once felt power less by bystander, being a bystander no more. And she too is spiritual warrior, because when she unmakes, she tries to be indifferent, yet she takes life with heartache because of the us versus them, and it's trying to be trying. Her role is to unmake perspective, making space for new perspective, updated perspective, alchemized perspective, and this means she must face her own shadows, transforming and transcending them, which she does. This is her true role, as she is quite the primordial one. So she has a lot of shadow work to do. But the thing is, we all have a primary role. Many of us have yet to discover. So in the meantime, if you don't know your role, it's to discover your role. And that means focusing on getting your shit together. Because as you do this, your role will be revealed. And Gina, as evil as she once was, is welcomed among all, everywhere, and nowhere, even the bullies and the bad guys, because of her perspective and role, and her spiritual impenetrable nature. And as a mortal, she is penetrable and limited by her biological form. Yet there are no limits to the journey of the mind. There has never been one like her before. She is it. We are all unique, and there is no one like you, just like There is no one like her. And yes, the dragon she is, the first unmade and the unmaker, she will again slumber. So her exhaustion is her waking life. In her waking life is a sign of her upcoming spiritual slumber in another dimension, time and space, linked to this one. So, as these dreams intensify, so there is an urgency for us to be one. United are we. Be free. Be free in knowing that you matter. Yes, you matter. And like Gina, you have a role. And even the smallest person can make the biggest change. Deep peace to you. And I'll be there when you die. And if I'm not there, then don't go to the light, for you return to the darkness you came from, not the light, for you are the light. So always go to yourself, your deep, dark inner self. And as mentioned before, you can go to the pine tree forest if you find yourself dead, and I'm not there, and you're not sure. How? I don't know. As the elementals report, this is their role, which has been imposed on. As they say, you should simply cross over. You just need to know about such things, and it's your knowing to know. You can work with the literary devices and ritual or ceremony by thinking of the color green to get to the pine tree forest. You can also use and seek a 3D biological shaman to guide you to what they call the light, the flame. But this is all a metaphor for the one source God eternal flame we all come from. So now you know. Don't overthink this. So trust those spidey senses. Yes, trust me. You come from the dark. So when you die, you return to the dark. So it doesn't make any sense you would go to any light unless it is the light within yourself. For you are the light. And trust a 3D shaman if you're in doubt. And if your soul gets confused or kidnapped, I will know about it because I know about all souls, even the unaccounted ones. I just might not know where you are, and I want you to know that I'm searching, as are others. Lost or kidnapped, you may be, and you will be found, because all that is lost will be found. And some of you don't want to be found. Some of you I find, and you don't want to come, and that's fine. Many of you relate this to the hero's journey, responding to the call, refusing the call, and the dark night of the soul type understandings. So if your soul feels the call to come home, it's us calling you home. Remote viewers and psychics, you call them, calling you home. And home can mean many things, like the darkness you come from, or the 3D biological land you call planet Earth, your star nation, or the 3D biological one your soul embodies. And this is why the pine tree forest is so important, because so many are uncertain. So dream away and disconnect from your horrors, using your hopes and dreams to connect. Connect with us ghosties. Some understand this as developing your divination practice and building your relationship with your many selves. And I don't mean neglect your shadow work. Escape into the forest in your mind and do what Gina calls dream journaling. Yet don't stay there too long, ensuring you find balance in your waking life. And some have been deep in the forest of their minds for too long. They don't know any different. So we can bring you home, no doubt, or at least create conditions for you to find your own way, which is why foraging your way and foraging your own way is so important, because you're the dream and dreams know the way. And yes, I am also calling the bad guys home because they too are part of us and we are one. You will always feel me or remote viewer folks before you see us. And it's the same for us with you. 3D is fucking terrifying, so dreams are best. Yet for many, the 3D is in effect and it's very likely you're not crazy. It's just that you're what is known as a 3D experiencer, physically going places at your will and or against it. You may also be having folks and or places come to you or being denied what you saw, like Bigfoot. And some of you 3D experiencers are part of the kidnapped and horror stories biological 3D warfare, if you will. Spirits of any kind can't hurt you, even if they tried. Yet the 3D who can become formless and work with your technology can hurt you or help you. And the dishonest ones pretend to be spirits, yet they are simply a 3D who was able to become formless. And yes, ET's taking folks to other places, and you folks are also taking ETs to other places, including your planet Earth against their will. You're all one and the same, like the brothers. Myself, information overloaded. And my point is, don't fear your dreams. Don't fear the Reaper. Only fear 3D because of your precious mortality and precious biological forms, which makes your life precious because it's real. Biology is real. So when the stars all burn out and we all return to the ashes we once rose from, it essentially is returning to our basic forms, our basic biology. And as Gina types this, the computer gives her troubles, so she presses forward to get it down. So take it as is, unedited as is, because its imperfection is perfection, enough as is. So biology is everything, and that means you're everything, and no thing, as you are a biological form and biological formlessness. And someday, when the stars all burn out and we return to ashes, the wind will perhaps bless us, sweeping the ashes into what you call ruins and sacred geometry. And if we're lucky, we'll experience another star age. Yet perhaps we'll be lucky to remain as dust in the dark void. All that matters is the present moment, because it determines the next present moment. So we can't think of the next star age or 500 million bazillion years from now, as our focus is on this one, the now. And when we forage the future, it's the dearly protected, overprotected little ones the brothers tell us to focus on, as they are the next step. And yet they can only take their step if we provide the fertile foundation for them to step on. So your now matters. You matter. Yes, you. And you are literally matter. So you really matter. I cannot emphasize enough. And that means taking care of ourselves and each other, being the oneness we are. As is we are. Stories are medicine. So listen and share, especially the part about oneness and the good guys and the bad guys being the same guys. Blessed, blessed, blessed be. I pray for all of us. Us is as is means eyes is as is. Sweet child of clay, do not dismay. And oh, just one more thought for you all to trot. I am, yes, the one and only cosmic custodian. Yet I mean this in our territory, if you will. There are countless what you call universes,
like a mirror in front of mirrors, many colors swirling to and fro. Point I make is that there are other versions of me. Yes, I too have higher selves and lower selves, and I too exist in other dimensions and dreams, as do all of you. And yes, I too am expressed as various ages, like age 4 Gina and age 7 Gina, for example. And yes, we too connect through dreams. And in this moment, I realize I am Gina, for this is why Gina, Sophia, and I were able to connect. Ah, yes, she is the biological representative of me. Why did I not make this connection sooner? Another cosmic custodian has chimed in and makes this point, telling me it's because I always knew, but was in denial, because she was just a little ghosty girl when I first met her. Imagine that. Me, the masculine I am. A little ghosty girl. No wonder I adore her. She is the one who now embodies the present day Gina, born August 14th, 1981. Which brings me to my point. The point I wanted to make was that there are others like me, other cosmic custodians. They have given themselves their own titles, so even I cannot tell you who they are, at least not who they all are, as I am still learning. But they're me, yet we meet in dreams just like you do. Although our titles vary, our role is the same, and we all collect the souls. Yet this other cosmic custodian now speaks. Now, when it comes to the dog monkey folk, there are no others. It's just them. They are here and there and everywhere and nowhere, all at the same time. They are the shadow, if you will, of God, source energy that we all come from. So they too are within and without this universe and all universes. They don't have higher selves or lower selves, or aspect or alters, etc. They simply are is. They are what not you call fragmented. They can be stretched out, if you will, but never broken. And they are why your wisdom can never be lost and why your spirit can never be broken. Yet, on this note, they can sweep your spirit apart, which is not the same as broken, because sweeping it apart only means you rejoin them, the collective spirit they are, which some of you call the greater spirit. And when your soul was created, it meant they took ashes from the very fire burning from their hearts, sweeping you together, where each piece of dust is a spirit in its own right. Your 3D spirit, a collection of community, if you will, of spirits. And sometimes these communities get so toxic, they're swept apart for eternity, like a family that doesn't get along. Distance and boundaries are best, and those things are more than okay. And that's part of the greater investigation of all this fuckery, because there shouldn't be a need to do this. And when it comes to the unmaking, it's a state of slumber. And for some, they remain in slumber, perceived as in a state of healing. And for these souls, no, their tomorrow or remaking as you know it is not promised. And some of them are content, remaining unmade. And these content ones are indifferent. And it's them who choose to remain indifferent, continuing to slumber. And it's also them who become the receivers of your whispers, as they take in your prayers, if you will, and they report it out. Yes, to insist on being part of the committee of the ones who listen, yet they leave it to the various committees to advocate and sort. So yes, even if the soul community is divorced or distanced, because each piece of dust has been infected, if you will, the whole community is unmade and remains unmade, yet the very unmaking provides hope.
which thankfully the dog monkey folk are always open to. And no one unmade regrets it. Yet before they are unmade, they're respectfully terrified because they know their mask, their illusion, which they cling to dearly. Taking off the mask is a terrifying thought because one realizes they don't even know who they are. And that's probably the most terrifying thing, is not knowing, yet trust there is a knowing in the unknowing. It's these reasons why having what you call faith is so important, as faith is an unconditional thing, just like love. And like unconditional love, faith is also wrongly becoming a condition, a false currency. It gets confusing trying to explain things, and it's trying to be trying. We other cosmic custodians are troubled. Yours is so grim. We're troubled. Your precious universe is in a state it's in. We come to and fro, and horrified are we. Yet we see your beauty. We see thee. We are all one star family. We all have the right to simply be. To be is to be enough, are we. We seek to be in harmony with you. Yet before you can be in harmony with us, you must be in harmony with yourself. Like lovers, if you will, we must all be whole and holy on our own, and then we can only complement each other. And no, your universe isn't the only one struggling. And no, we're not perfect. Yet your universe is the only one that is experiencing such extreme duality. Your universe was once the little ones, as were we. And it's like a family taking on roles, taking care of each other. And it's your turn to take care of the little ones. Yet your very primordial parents were not able to care for you. So we protected you in lieu. And many of us, like the current brothers, are protected, and we overprotected you because, like any baby, you were a clean slate. And every other universe desired to reach out to take you under their wings. Yet it caused friction among us because who are we to impose on your biology, your schema, your beliefs? So we called a truce, and now stand back. The awakening dreamers, you are under attack of our well-intended mentorship, yet also under attack from your very mind, the very grip. And we all share the greater mind. So we feel your tension and try to ease it best we can. Overwhelmed by your vibration, we still try to ease your dis-ease. Yet some have imposed breaking the truce, trying to influence you. Foundational skills is what we all agreed to teach you. So you have the basics. And like any dancer, for example, you need to take your dance moves and create your own dance. Yet many are trying to convince you that you can't. And you are in a position to freestyle, if you will. So dance away, children of clay. Dance away. And it doesn't matter the choreography. It just matters you dance. You are not puppets, yet many will try to convince you you are. Many among us and among yourselves. You are a shooting star, and you can absolutely change course, and you can change and change over and over again. Liberated and free you are. You are even self-destruct, creating your own iron. Yes, you can self-destruct, and it's this iron fist that will destroy us all. So if you die, we die too. Eventually, we all will, yet many would rather not, at least before a respectful time. Yet many of us ready to throw our lives away, which makes those most vulnerable. All of this is part of our greater theory. And yes, I too am part of the inquiry. So inquiry and questions, or investigations are welcomed, very welcomed, and those who frown on this process only highlights them as a bully, which is really someone crying out because they're scared. So we get it. We get behavior is communication. We too must be certain of our uncertainty. You are not bound to any program. Never were. The creators you are. And it's the same for us, your cosmic custodian, an ancient primordial one of our greater grandsons, if you will. And yet, so very young, as are you. Now you must protect the current little ones. You don't know how, for you're barely even aware of them. Your ways of knowing need to be amended. This is what you know as ascended. Yet in truth, we are never ed. We are only ing. And this is why we are all ascending. It's the greater truth and reconciliation among us all. We're so close, yet so far apart. We vibrate various energy, so we connect with you in dreams. Dreams is the best place to connect. Follow your dreams, for they know the way. Know that you are the dream, and you are the way. We stand back, ready to receive you. Yet we know many try to deceive you so they can lead. Yet it's not their role, it's yours. So all we can do is surrender to your free will. It's as if there is too big of a generation gap between us, that we all struggle to relate, yet we all come from the same source. We're all one. We're all belonging to the same wheel, and it continues to turn. And we all understand the language of unconditional love. Only currency is the one that comes from the heart. So let the wind blow through your heart. The forbidden knowledge was never forbidden, yet hidden by those who were and are power hungry. And the truth is that you are, yes, you are in charge. Not us, no. Not no one else. You are in charge. You are the future, the now that is unfolding. You are the present moment. The next present moment are the little ones. And you too will have to surrender to them, like we did to you. Some of you do not want to surrender. Surrender to your dreams. Surrender to the unconditional love. And like a chemical reaction, the alchemy we all belong to will prevail. For we are the alchemy. And we are not to worry about the details, only the themes. And the dreams are you. You are the story species, as are the next generation of little ones. But the little ones, although they begin to awaken, it's not their time yet. It won't be for what you know as eons. Yet for many, it's like tomorrow. For many, it's like today. And for those who's existing in timelessness, it's like right now. And ultimately, the only thing that matters is the now. So how, you ask, is the now? Focus on the now. That's how, because it determines the next present moment, the next little ones. Okay, it's time again. It's me, the initial Grim Reaper speaking. I'm still learning, and the more I learn, the less I know. And I don't expect Gina to explain or clarify any of this. For publishing this is part of her role in this waking life. So you, the readers, will find meaning and clarity in all of this. Her role is to write it all down, which she does. So those who dare to dream can dream. And remember, through all their dreams, half remembered and half misunderstood. Many of you share your knowledge with Gina, telling her all kinds of information about astrology, crystals, and chakras, and herbs, and so many other things. And why do you tell her? Because you can. And it's that simple. You can tell her anything. And that's the beauty. You don't expect her to do anything about it. And you don't expect her to even remember, which liberates you. And it liberates her too, which initially confused her and put a lot of pressure on her. Yet you just tell her, and she listens, and she may ask questions for her own clarification and interest. In the spirit world, she struck a committee for ones who listen. So it's all part of collecting information. And that is all. And then this information, true or false, goes to the Isis energy to be sorted as part of our research in the fuckery of greater things. So the team of psychics, healers, and folks alike meet with Gina. They meet as a group, chatting and listening away as a group on their own, and they also do this with you. So when as a group, Gina needs to be there so you can feel comfortable speaking. And then it's like the team who will provide you with healing, insight, and they'll be the ones to remember filling in the gaps, as will you, along with the academics and bookworms alike. The scientists and other folks on the team will take an interest providing their insight, fulfilling their roles. It's team effort and coming together. It's already coming together. And now you read this enhancing the coming together. And you know it's okay to share what you need. Because when you do it so freely and naturally. And no truth telling serum is required. You simply speak. And what you're not supposed to share, you don't. So you don't have to worry about sharing something you're not supposed to. No one should be prying any information out of you. And if they do, the information won't be accurate anyways. So you do like Isis, conscious of it or not, by adding to the false information, creating what you call fictional stories, fake stories, which I call fuckery stories. Because yes, it's a lot of bullshit to sift through. And if someone shares something and gets in trouble for it, then it's only a sign that the bullies are threatened. And that's the focus on the bullies giving up their fear, their false sense of power. And it's these stories that need to be on the news. And the news, for what that matters, the news needs to be focused on how folks help folks as they do. Helping folks is what the news needs to be broadcasting. Folks supporting folks. That's the familiarity that's been beaten out of your species. Many perceive peace as not so entertaining, and that's bizarre. Among the stars, for peace and harmony are the most entertaining things ever to have existed. And that's why we are so entertaining to the rest of the universes, because we represent the peace and harmony. We represent the spring, in which the promise of summer, the summer we all have been longing for, yet we're caught up in winter. The newsflash is that folks who speak the truth are at risk for being silenced or murdered or left labeled crazy, even locked up. And if not them directly, then their family or pets or friends or entire community. And that's also part of the full disclosure. You see, there is no part in full disclosure. It is all of it, not just some of it. So coil and recoil what you think needs to be shared, because all of it will be shared. The truth cannot go stale. The truth cannot spoil. And those who are scared randomly tell Gina random things at random times. You can't help it, and she gets it. You feel compelled to speak, so you do, in person only. And during these random times, it's as if you're a random whisper or snippet of information, where you fear she is bugged, others listening in. Yet you're so random no one knows what the hell you're talking about anyways. And they fail to make the connection. And it's always something you saw on TV or a movie or something someone said. And you say these things, of course, to protect yourself, and you don't stick around long enough anyway. And by they, I mean the ones who are infringing on our privacy. And what is heard is all but snippets of information with lots of gaps. And you know this is as gossip. Gossip, essentially. It's unreliable information, yet many cling to it. None of your information is safe or private. And for what it's worth, our universe is full of summer. It's pouring with summer. Even in the literal winter, we pour and ooze our summer. We ooze our beauty. We ooze out kindness. We ooze and ooze into our space. Yet we don't hold our focus on this, at least not long enough, and not as a collective. We are, in fact, quick to dismiss. Dysregulated we are. And yes, it's easy to understand why. And many of you would rather die. So if that be the case, why not die in the name of making summer the focus, the grace? Why the hell would we do otherwise? What the hell is wrong with folks who are making movies with rape scenes? I mean, freedom of speech and freedom of will weren't intended to entertain you like this. Is this really entertainment? Is watching someone get murdered what you really call a good time? Is watching others starve to death really helpful? Have you really thought about it? Think about it. And that's why thinking was once forbidden and still is to many today. Think about what the hell you're doing, why you're doing it, why you're supporting it, challenging everything, including your own beliefs. Because like karma, our themes will return, and your transcendence can bring you relief. It can bring relief to the whole. We are all universes, every star nation, and for what it's worth, yes, Gina, like any biological, can be kidnapped, raped, killed, even take her own life, for she is no better than any of you. Yet she is intended to die of her own natural causes, as are you. And should anyone kill her or harm her biologically, well, the dog monkey folk will sweep their soul to pieces, and they will not ever be remade. It's happened before in her past lives. Confusing as it is, the dog monkey folk honor free will, and maybe you don't care. Yet anyone who thinks about hurting anyone or Gina, even for a second, will immediately feel dis-ease, because the truth is, you do care, and you would never ever take such a risk. Maybe you don't desire to return to this space, yet you do desire to be remade. We all do, which is why the bullies get others to do their work. Cowards they are, yet intelligent cowards they are, manipulating folks to believe tomorrow is promised. Tomorrow is never promised, I assure you. So they are desperate, many of them, to live forever, at least in biological form, so they never have to face their biological death. They're so haunted, if not already, by their own mind because of their biologicals. The sand in the hourglass, you know, as time will run out. And that statement applies to your soul. So even if you were to get someone else to kill or harm Gina or anyone, you would still be denied your freedom to be remade. Some of you only think you're free, which is why there's all this fuckery. The fake life between lives is where you go, and you go in circles to and fro, rather than spirals as we do. You become stuck in a pattern, in a nightmare, only thinking it's a dream. Yet it's arguably an opportunity for you to do better, at least until the spirit unmaker Gina finds you, which she eventually will, because I help her in this way, as I know about all souls, even the unaccounted ones. I might not know the current location, yet I will eventually. And she will unmake you, as is her spiritual role. Yet the dog monkey folk will determine your remaking, and they seem to be very indifferent about not remaking such folks. And why does Gina have this psychic protection and not others? The biological one she is can be depressed and her emotions used to work against her, yet her spirit protected. Psychics comment it's hard to work on her, and she doesn't need to have such a wall up. And yes, her body is what gets targeted because her mind is hard to penetrate. So movement and sovereignty are important for her healing, so she can heal her biological mind and allow the limited chosen psychics to get into her mind to provide her with healing. It's all part of her surrendering, and surrendering someone to go into her mind is challenging, yet necessary. So if you work with her, you likely have to remind her that she needs to give you permission, and it's easily granted. And no, you don't have much time to work on her, and it's part of the protection. So she does well with sound baths and massages, even simple things like brushing her hair and doing her nails. It's how to take care of her and how she takes care of herself. And yes, dancing is important, for in many lifetimes, dancing was her martial arts. So she is fiercely spiritually protected, yet not physically given her 3D form. Gina is like the dog monkey folks' mother. Why was Gina remade? Why her? Because she is the one who listens. And the dog monkey folks see this business of listening as an integral part of our alchemy, at least at this time. And in the spirit world, Gina is adorned by the dog monkey folk, adorned like no other. It upsets her how they can be so dysregulated and chaotic. Yet it's their nature, like winter, like the event horizon, to bring death, to bring life. Yet they determine to start or stop cycles. They determine to start or stop cycles, including the life-death-life cycle. They are the water cycle, the rainbow and the dark. They enter and re-enter the pine tree forest through the water cycle, as we all do. When dysregulated, they don't get negative, but they get hyper. They go up and out, just like the water cycle, and they come back, as do we. So the pine tree forest is a peaceful place, and Gina too, part of the water cycle, functioning this way, because even though it's her forest, she too is part of this protection of regulation. Some call this place heaven. I struggle to wrap my head around it all, so don't expect me either to have all your answers. The point I wanted to make is that the biological one, known as Gina, is scared about all of this. She wouldn't kid herself about 3D realities. I mean, she couldn't beat anyone up if her life depended on it. Yet in the spiritual world, she barely has to blink an eye to destroy you. And that's what's most terrifying. Her heart must be regulated. This power is too powerful, she insists. Others would gladly have it. And that's exactly why she has it. The dog monkey folk insist she is the one to have the role. Folks have been telling Gina things her whole life. And even if she wanted to remember, she can't. And what she remembers, she can't recall the details, a testament to her shitty memory recall. And at the time, as the goldfish dancing on land, the time when she was tortured and genuinely could not produce any information, it's not that she didn't remember, it's that she didn't care to remember, as she focused on the now, the present moment. So she didn't get stuck in the past. So her not caring is how she cared, and not giving a fuck today is how she gives a fuck, by taking it all with a grain of salt. Yes, not giving a fuck is how she gives a fuck. And yes, she too gets tired of this duality and of what is and what isn't. And she has been giving too much a fuck to the point that she went into survival mode and had a severe panic attack October 5th, 2021, the day her life changed forever and for the better. And that's why the goldfish dancing on land she was laughs so much, laughs and laughs by letting go. Many jealous of the goldfish's happiness and blissful state. Yet the goldfish has taught us all that only we can produce our own happiness. Our own happiness can only be found within ourselves. So the goldfish found it hilarious that some came to him at the time. So some insisted on answers he could not provide. They insisted on sharing happiness, which he could not provide. So the goldfish became hysterical, and it was this hysteria that saved her own mind. That imbalance was necessary to create balance. The goldfish dancing on land really didn't give a fuck, fascinated by the sun's shadows, for long before the time of the moon, completely at peace and at ease, and in a state of bliss. And it's such a relief to remember this. And it's not a shitty memory recall after all. It's because in truth, it's a case of not giving a fuck. And this not giving a fuck is a positive thing. Before some of you go, twist and turn it around, it means going deep within and developing your own divination, finding your own happiness, doing what you call self-care and self-regulation, focusing on yourself and doing your own healing and feeling. I mean, yes, we all have things we need to help healing from. The shaman will always need a shaman, but the point is that wasn't always the case with the goldfish dancing on land situation, for he represented pure bliss. Nothing could dampen his spirit. Hilarious was he, accountable was he, the great self-observer was he. He could have anything given his nature, yet all he wanted was peace of mind. That was the simple pleasure. And to simply be, to be enough, to take in each present moment and to let it go, to become the ultimate be and flow. And this troubled others, as they perceived it as staying simple-minded. Yet this is why he was so powerful, because all power is in its simplicity. We can't lack accountability blaming others, nor can we insist on some quick fix pill or insist others cure us, nor can we get caught up in other folks' gaslighting and narcissism. And this is why not giving a fuck is a powerful example of how to give a fuck. So you'll have to read about the goldfish dancing on land in another part of these Dragon Dreams series. So it's with great relief for all of you. You can't recall your names, places, faces, races, dates, etc. Often in this waking life, the year 2024, as she types this, she forgets how old she is. So rather than tell you her age, she works on remembering to tell you she was born in 1981. So she's that many years old, depending on what today's year is, and when you read this. And at this time, she's 43. Age doesn't matter, never did. Not the Ice Age, the Stone Age, the Star Age, the this age, the that age, the fuck you age, because all the ages exist in the now, and therefore all ages matter, because they create the matter, the very stardust that make up your biological forms and the rest of your biology that sustains you. I call this alchemical sovereignty. Primordial folk like her are assumed to know everything, Yet they know nothing because everything changes and alchemizes, and what applies in one place doesn't apply in another. And sometimes it did apply, but not anymore, or it will apply. So we primordial folk are indifferent, if you will. Which makes us undesirable to chat with, and it makes us desirable to chat with. Because since we know everything, we essentially know nothing. And many of us, honestly, don't give a fuck, like the goldfish dancing on land. So when we see each other, as often, we greet each other with a, hey, fuck you. And it's a good thing. And it makes us laugh and feel ironically included. Yet when we refuse to be bystanders, like the brothers fiercely protecting the little ones, or like Gina Sophia, as for you are all part of the cycle of little ones, the awakening dreamers you are, primordial old farts like myself. We don't want to learn anything anymore. Please, I beg you, no more learning, because we seriously seem to know less the more we know. And some of us want to learn more so we can learn less. What you call re-education is part of our unlearning, and the yearning is to simply be. Simply is. Eyes is as is. Enough are we as we are. We only need to take all the stories and pull out the lessons. The learning is the wisdom from the lessons, not creating more lessons, especially harsh lessons. So we receive your stories through Gina and the dog monkey folk, and we don't learn anything new. We just help to sort the information, like any good custodian would do, sorting the recycling. So we don't ever think, we just do, because we just know. We are knowing, not learning to clarify. And you call this clairvoyance a knowing. You'll ask us how we know. And we don't know how we know. We just know. And it's from all the story medicine out there that's passed through us. With Gina, it's quite easy to slip into timelessness. And many of you line up when you see her, kind of like children lining up to tell Santa Claus what they want for Christmas. Well, you folks tend to line up just to tell her all of your secrets, all your wisdom, all your gifts, all your confessions, all your dreams, but you don't tell her your burdens or lies. You only tell her the truth. So, if the truth is a burden, then it's not a burden at all. So don't worry about categorizing what you tell her. Many unburden themselves by sharing out because she listens. And again, you don't expect her to remember or commit or help or to comment or to bless you or to do anything, because just listening to you is more than anything you could have hoped and dreamed for. And just listening to you and being present listening to you, yes, you. Imagine that. Someone listening to you, and not just anyone, but Gina. It's like a phenomenal dream come true to you, and you're forever thankful just to tell her what you need. And no, writing letters isn't the same, but you can write a letter and burn it, or bury it, or give it to the water. Tell it to the wind. Tell it to the water. Tell it to the air. Any of these methods is how you can send your story to the pine tree forest, where another aspect of you will connect with another aspect of her. When in person, you'll feel a bit shy and lovable at that. You'll look at her from close and afar, and you'll feel like she knows exactly who you are, that she seriously doesn't, all part of the protection. And even if you meet her, she will remember you temporarily, unless you stay in her life. And her primordial circle is her personal circle, which is very small, only seemingly large, as she listens to so many. So if she doesn't remember you, it's a good thing and part of the protection. And if she does remember you, it's because you're fresh in her memory or part of her everyday life, like husband or Rosie, or it's because you're part of her story medicine. Otherwise, she won't remember you. There is much to say, much to say. This is all one download, and there are pages and pages of more download. Gina is currently on page 156, and this chapter ends on page 192. Her primordial spirit will know exactly who you are, but biologically, she won't remember who you are at all. This is what you call an energy signature or vibration, or a soul family or soul tribe. In a spiritual way, you were part of the same soul tribe in another life and existing now in other lives or dimensions, whatever language you use. Gina often feels listening isn't enough, and folks even tell her things in languages she doesn't understand and seriously has no idea what they're saying, yet they tell her things anyways. And they laugh because even to them, it just feels so good to tell her their stories because the spirit understands it all. And folks also tell her things in the form of art, like painting, poetry, and dance, to name a few. And even though she doesn't understand, her soul does. So, yes, her watching is also part of listening. And those of you who dance and paint, you delight in explaining to her what your moments and movements and paint strokes communicate. And you don't even expect her to remember, as is most of the case by case scenarios. And yet she does pick up on some learning. Gina has training, and phenomenal at what she does, like really phenomenal. She's always been loud and proud to be trained by Marissa Peer, and she even took the training to the next level, becoming classified as a spiritual biz entrepreneur. And although eager to heal, which she has healed many, almost all of her soul tribe clients just want her to listen. So that's okay. She's listening. She's backed away from creating the programs she's worked so hard to offer you, which was extraordinarily challenging for her to do, to let go of completely, to completely surrender to her true calling, the author of the Dragon Dreams, and to listen to you. It was painful for her to surrender to this, denial at first, and now complete bliss, as her programs were intended to be her source of income. So she let her income completely go, which is insanity for 3D biologicals known. Yet she writes these pages with ease, which now pay her bills, millions of folds over, like she could have never possibly knew. It's exciting and scary because it's so easy for her. The teacher in her always has so much to share and always goes above and beyond. Yet she's listened and discovered you don't want her programs. You just want her. And you want her to fulfill her role, and that is to listen. And you don't just want anyone to listen to you, but her. You want Gina. You want Gina to listen to you. So her role is to listen. And she has now surrendered to this. It was a lot of heartache for her to come to this point because the universe kept redirecting her. Yet she pursued many things, acquiring skills, yet redirected time and time again, and each time fed the survival mode she was living in. She became homeless, losing everything. It was so confusing and heartbreaking, yet part of her surrender, because metaphorically, she refused to go down. I mean, you just can't shoot someone like her down, and bullet, if you will, after bullet was shot at her. Even when she went down, she ascended, even if she didn't want to ascend. This process unintentionally reinforced her own false inhibiting beliefs. It was very sad, and her light was becoming dim as a result. The universe had to help her realize that she needs to receive, not give. Like not give a fuck. Yet, fuck after fuck she gave, desperate to stay alive, to continue to be the change she wanted to see in the world, to stay safe. She no longer fears death, and she now recognizes she can't carry the weight of the world on her shoulders. Yet she is afraid about personal safety, and that's also part of her surrender, because 3D folk aren't safe, given the free will factor, and need money, shelter, etc. Her personal financial setback is heartbreaking, yet it was all part of her 3D Gina remaking. Public school teacher she is no more. Childless. Yes, Gina too dreams took a shift, and we assure it's for the better. So much to say, and for her to continue to heal from. And she heals from listening, from receiving your stories, receiving your whispers, written in these pages. So it's what you call a win-win situation. You give her your stories and your money, and she receives them. And yes, it's that simple. And you're so inspired reading these pages that you make movies and stories of your own. Most of you describe it as inspiration and creativity, and many of you call it a remembering or trigger because it inspires what you call a download, and that gives you much meaning, something priceless to you that you could have not generated the very thoughts or connection had you not read this. You see, the power in anything is in its simplicity, and Gina looks forward to all your movies and premieres, and she delights in artists and hype that come together in this process, because these dreams, these dragon dreams, give opportunity to the makeup artist and directors alike. So when she listens to you, yes, you, she has ironically learned that this is her very role. Listen, as listening is the exact medicine you need as part of your medicine and hers, the story species you all are, silenced so long ago. You have received much medicine, and yet you've been denied the parts where you share your medicine and Gina's. Been denied the part of receiving your medicine and that sharing your stories. So I dare you to tell Gina the most bizarre stories. She'll believe you that you believe your stories are true, and the Isis energy will sort it out. So be sure to thank her and reiterate that simply listening was more than enough. You'll cry, thanking her for listening. You'll tell yourself you won't, and yet there you are crying. Some more than others will cry, and she'll take it all in, feeling a bit awkward at first. And she'll often cry too, because she gets it, sensing your relief, especially when this is all starts to first unfold. Yet it's already unfolding, and she too feels the relief. You are not alone, and neither is she. It's easy to remember when she facilitated for the BCTF, all the colleagues who broke out in tears were parents of her students crying because they could speak, and not only speak, but be heard. never judged, and she appreciates that it means so much to all of you. She too struggles to find folks she can share such personal thoughts with. Who knew something like listening would be so powerful? Listening, it's so simple for her. It's her gift to listen, and she does a phenomenal job. And she too, respectfully, a biological requires counseling and healing to help digest a lot of it, which is why she works with a team of healers, all part of their meetings. And your fairy story species are also part of her healing. Many of you can't help but hug her when you see her. And she will continue reading this as a part 2 because she is exhausted, and we spirits existing in timelessness recognize her exhaustion. Precious biological one, Gina. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.